Good evening, everyone. It's a call to order the Town of Somers Charter Revision Commission presentation and second public hearing. Today is June 11th, 2025 at 7 o'clock. And I believe protocol, I'm going to call on Town Clerk Dave Marty to read the public hearing notice.
Well, I need it then.
Here you go. Maybe I just gave him another job.
Just read the screen.
Oh.
That's my test. All right. Public hearing notice. The Somers Charter Revision Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Somers Town Hall Auditorium, 600 Main Street, Somers, Connecticut, to receive public comments on the following proposed questions. 1, shall the town clerk become an appointed rather than an elected position? 2, shall the Board of Selectmen appoint a town administrator who reports to them and oversees day-to-day operations of the town? 3, shall the zoning and planning board be combined into a single appointed body? 4, shall the dollar amount over which a special appropriation exceeds, thus requiring approval by a vote of a town meeting, be revised? And 5, shall appointment to fill midterm vacancies change from until the next election to the end of the elected term? Some proposed questions are on file in the town clerk's office of the town of Somers Town Hall. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard and written communications may be sent to kneal@somersct.gov, dated at Somers, Connecticut, this 20th day of May, 2025. Charter Revision Commission, Scott Kalpin, Chairman, and it was published in the J on May 29th and June 6th.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. Sure. Okay. First of all, thank you all for coming out this evening. This is the Charter Revision Commission. We've been meeting since early February. Would like to introduce the members of the commission quickly. First of all, John Parks is our vice chairman, Teresa Schmidt, our secretary, and then we have Tom Clark, we have Mike Marinaccio, Ed DePoe, and Catherine Lurs. The statutory requirements for the membership of a Charter Revision Commission, it's between 5 and 15 members. So the Board of Selectmen settled on 7. Less than 1/3 can hold public office. A bare majority of any one political party. And we must hold at least 2 public hearings, one before, one after. So this is our second public hearing. The nature of our work, we conducted state statutory, local charter, and regulatory reviews. We are a single working group. We conducted interviews with Somers boards and commissions, town employees, municipal agencies, and other towns. We sought public input. We actually had public comment at all of our meetings, and people did take advantage of that. We had presentations from another town, the town of Ellington, extensive discussions of our findings and recommendations. We are still working on preparing a draft of our final report and also preparing the ballot questions, explanatory text, charter language changes, and all of this, once we approve it, gets turned over to the Board of Selectmen for their review and discussion and approval. So this is the second public hearing, and I want to let people know what the format is going to be. So we're going to have, since there's 5 questions, we are going to address a question at a time. So we'll have a presentation by one of the members on that specific question, and then we'll open it up for comment. And then once we've exhausted question number 1, we'll move on to question number 2. So comments will be taken from the public after each question has been presented. Only one person shall speak at a time. So I'll call on you and step up to the microphone. Clearly state your name and address prior to your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Once everyone has had an opportunity to comment, you'll be given an opportunity to speak again. All comments and questions will be recorded, and we thank you for your cooperation. We've also received, I believe, 3 submissions via email that we'll attach as part of the public record. So as it's been mentioned, the work of the Charter Revision Commission, we've discussed and approved 5 questions at this point in time. Shall the town clerk become an appointed rather than elected position? Shall the Board of Selectmen appoint a town administrator who reports to them and oversees the day-to-day operations of the town? Shall the Planning and Zoning Commissions be combined to a single appointed body? Those 3 questions were recommended to us by the Board of Selectmen to look at, and we're all in favor of those 3 questions. And then, of course, we weren't limited to those 3 questions. We did a page-by-page review of the charter. We took comment from town staff, from the public, of different questions, different areas to look at. And there were 2 that we so far are planning to move forward. And that one came from the Board of Finance. Shall the dollar amount over which a special appropriation exceeds, thus requiring approval by vote of a town meeting, be revised? And shall an appointee to a vacancy in elective office serve for the remainder of the elected term rather than until the next election? And we're in favor of those 2 questions as well. So we're going to move to question number 1. And question number 1, Teresa Schmidt. She is our resident expert on question number 1. This is actually my way to make sure that everyone on the commission, because everyone has put in so much time and effort, it's been a very collaborative process, very calm heads, commentary, feedback, and it's been a great commission to work with. So it was my suggestion that each member takes on 1 question and presents it to the public. So, and by the luck of the draw, Teresa got question number 1, so I'm going to turn it over to Teresa for her presentation. Once she's done, then we'll open it up for comments.
Thank you, Scott. So looking at the town clerk, as was previously said, we had a lot of information from different towns, from our own town clerk, and other pieces of information from other things. So right now, there is a need to be certified. The town clerk has to be certified within 3 to 4 years, and it covers a lot of different information regarding a whole series of important records that the town clerk is responsible for, such as the municipal records, land records, vital records, births, deaths, marriages, election records, and some miscellaneous, like this being June, it's dog license month. He's also responsible for that. In regards to elections, they work closely with the Registrar of Voters, but they are responsible for a number of things as well. The absentee ballots, nominating petitions, candidate certifications, publication of election notices, and the preparation and verification of various reports. There's also a whole host of other things that a town clerk needs to have a knowledge base about in order to carry out his duties or her duties and to properly manage records. So they need Connecticut State statute knowledge, accounting, legal procedures, government structure, and real estate. Like so much today as well, gone are the days of filing just papers or filling out papers. A town clerk needs to enter data into different computer programs and needs a lot of computer skills for different programs that come up. The town clerk also needs to have communication skills as they deal with the public, the townspeople, but they also deal with other professionals that come in looking for records for certain things. But they also have a relationship with the municipal employees in town as well as state officials. So there's a lot that needs to be done, and a professional needs to be working in this position. So as we reviewed some of this information in the positions, there are advantages of the position being hired versus elected. We had the benefit, as Scott mentioned too, of learning from experiences from other towns and who had changed to an appointed position. So some of the things that are advantages, when you hire a professional with experience, they will act in the interest of all the town. They would know the state statutes and be compliant with them and be able to be a resource for people. There's also, when you hire someone, there's a wider pool to choose from because you'll have people with knowledge already, as opposed to a Summers resident. That's all they need to be in order to run for the town clerk. They may not even know what they're getting into. So that's one of the things. But there's also a risk, like we had the last election, that no one opposed the one person who did run. So basically, the voters had no choice. There was only one person running. So an unqualified person or a person that's inexperienced could also make mistakes. I mean, as you see, there's the land records, there's elections. Those are all key things that the town clerk needs to understand in order to give the best advice and give the information that's needed when it's needed to who it's needed, because there's a lot of that going around too. There is a part-time hired assistant, but you can't depend on that poor one part-time assistant to manage and help a new town clerk who doesn't have the background or the experience. And as a hired professional, they would be evaluated. It wouldn't just be the electors who can vote them out. And in saying that, what if a town clerk wasn't performing like they should? The only thing we can do is vote them out. They're still in that position. So that's why I think it's time, because of all the different things that a town clerk needs to be doing, that it needs to be a professional with some knowledge and qualifications. 43% of the Connecticut towns, both large and small, have gone to hiring a qualified person. And recently, Union has voted to change to an appointed position. And Harwinton just voted for that last year, and will be hiring for 2026. And right now in Ridgefield, Stafford, and Washington, they're all moving forward with the same question to their voters. This is a cost-neutral position, as the town clerk is a paid position. And given what we've learned and the importance of having a qualified person, this commission is recommending that the question be moved forward.
There's one other additional item that was discussed by the group, and that's the salary of the position. A lot of people don't realize that the town clerk is a paid position, elected and paid. In our case, it's approximately $75,000 a year. That salary would not be affected if the person became appointed. So we would go out to the market and see what that is the going rate for that, and it would be in the same salary range as the current salary range. So there's really not much of a difference there. So it's one thing we wanted to point out.
Great. Thank you, Teresa and Mike. So now we will go to the public comment on the first question. So just if anyone, Dave, lead it off.
Dave Marty, 50 Springfield Road. Really can't say much more. Terry really gave a really good story there. I do want to share that when I was first elected and I came in and spent the time with Ann Logan, that I was shocked at how much was involved with the job. And I actually took the whole month of December, the first month, shadowing Ann on my own dime, on my own time, just to have 4 weeks of preparation, which was not sufficient at all. But luckily, I have a great assistant that really helped me through along and got me going. So I can't agree more. I've asked Dave McCaffrey to hand out. This is a memo that I gave to the Charter Revision Commission at the beginning, stating my positions on it. And so instead of me getting up here and talking for another 10 minutes, I think we just let you guys read it. And it echoes a lot of what Terry said. But I think that this is a very important move for the town. And hopefully it'll pass.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Yes.
Catherine Mashak, 54 Springfield Road. I think things have changed a lot since 1968 when I moved into town. Definitely, I agree that it needs to be a position that we hire a qualified person for. I attended the last meeting, and the rhetoric, the word appointed seemed to be a sticking point. You used the word hire, and so when you put that question out to the vote, because there's obviously a lot of people who didn't come to the freaking meeting, we need to define exactly the terminology that the position is there's going to be qualifications for it, that they're answerable to the select board, that this isn't just somebody you decide you want your nephew to have a nice job. So I think that's important. But I agree 100% with this change. I think it needs to be done at this point. Dave's not going to do this forever, and I know Deb is already talking about she's looking towards retirement. If we lose both of them the same year, our goose is cooked. So it took Dave, I'm his neighbor, so I know how much he put into learning everything, qualifying. I know there's continuing education credits. People don't understand that this is an ongoing process. And so anyway, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, Ralph.
Another member of the Springfield Road Mafia. Ralph Williams, 42 Springfield Road.
He's his other neighbor.
Wow.
On the other hand, I don't entirely agree with either of them. I acknowledge all of the arguments. It requires a lot of training. It requires a lot of knowledge. It requires a lot of depth. But it also is the last position in Town Hall in Somers, apart from the Registrar of Voters, that is not at the whim, if you will, of the Board of Selectmen in one way or another. It's and I believe that it's important to have the ability for there to be an independent voice when there are any questions about what's going on in town. I don't want to get too biblical about it, but it's the equivalent of being able to speak truth to power without having to worry about whether your livelihood is going to be put on the line for speaking up. For that reason, I have misgivings about it. I'm not antithetical to it, but I would like to see some way that we could be sure that even if we have an appointed town clerk, that it's someone who can maintain a level of independence, if only because, as I said, we don't have anybody else who is not in Town Hall, who is not in some way answerable to the selectmen for their livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Sean Curtis, 36 Lovers Lane, not a part of the Springfield Mafia. And if I knew Dave ran unattended, but I wasn't in town at that time. Kidding aside, thank you for the work that you've done. I haven't been able to attend in person, but I've watched the meetings online. And I'll keep to this one and to the next one. I support the appointments, the recommendations going forward for the appointments for town clerk, and for the second question that will come up later. I would like consideration, and obviously there's legalities to this, but consideration given for these appointments for people that reside in the town of Somers. And I understand the benefits of qualifications and considerations. It's noted from the fire service. Again, when you get into unions, it gets a little bit different, but there's extra credit points given to members that apply for the fire service if they do reside in the town. I understand this is in a union-related circumstance, but I think that as the town grows, it's having somebody in these positions that has a vested interest in town, that's engaged here, that understands what's going on, has feet on the ground, ears as well to the ground is important. Albeit I understand the benefits, but somehow, some way, it's written in there, consideration be given first, and maybe some additional qualifications for those that do reside in the town of Somers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Yes.
Dave Penny, 214 Maple. Is it anticipated that the candidate would be considered and hired by the Board of Selectmen, or is there some alternative method that's being considered?
There'll be a committee, Dave, similar to that of the assessor and the tax collector and the CFO.
Right.
Right now, we're talking about it being the selectmen. If there is a town administrator approved, he or she would be a part of that committee also. And then somebody like a former town clerk like Dave would be part of that committee also. So, and the committee would make a recommendation for the hire after going through the interview process. So,
Yeah. And once hired, a performance review would be, that
again, it
same
would
committee
be
would come
an
together?
Annual performance review with a we haven't decided when the reappointment would be. It could be
Yep.
2-year reappointment. I would say it should be a 4-year because we're saying there's a long learning curve in the job. So,
Well, we're hoping to hire someone who's well along that curve.
yeah.
Right.
But nonetheless, I mean, yeah, I think it speaks a little bit to some of the concerns that were raised about, some level of separation between the town clerk and the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Dave. Catherine.
Catherine Mashak, 54 Springfield Road. Number one, we have a two-party system. So people are either Democrat or Republican who are basically running for offices here. And occasionally we have an independent, but as far as I've observed, not very often. So going back to what Mr. Williams said about them not having whatever to the town. The other thing is, if it's set up like you're saying, I think Mr. Pinning made some good comments about, the review process, that this isn't going to be anything willy-nilly, and that needs to be put across to people. Last meeting, there was a lot said, this is a small town, we don't need to do this, we want our right to decide who's going to do it. Well, you could be digging your own grave doing that. And I think at this point, we really need to consider things. And I was talking to the assistant, the town clerk assistant the other day, and she said, would you hire a high school student to put your roof on, a new roof on your house? And I thought that was a good point. And I forgot to say it before, so I'm saying it now. All right, thank you. And you guys, we do appreciate this is a very tedious and dedicated group to put this together. I realize that, and I'm thankful.
Thank you. Anyone else on question 1? We good? And also, just so everyone knows that when we go through the 5 questions and the round, we will have at the very end a final round, which is open. Okay. Question number 2. Mike, I know are you looking for your?
I'm looking for my updated version.
So this is the question number 2. This is, shall the Board of Selectmen appoint a town administrator who reports to them and oversees the day-to-day operations of the town? And Tom Clark will be making the presentation.
Can I talk about the...
So you can grab the hand.
I think I'm loud enough, people can probably hear me.
I think so.
All right, good.
Yeah, but people
But maybe not
filming it,
Yeah.
may not hear you.
Okay, all right, might just take this in? Okay. All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Tom Clark. I'm part of the Charter Revision Commission. Tonight, we're discussing the key question for Summers' future. Shall the Board of Selectmen appoint a town administrator who reports to them and oversees the day-to-day operations of the town? We'll explore how Summers is governed, the options available, the pros and cons, and what this could mean for our town. Your input is crucial, so let's get started. How is Summers governed today? Summers is led by a Board of Selectmen and town meeting. The first selectman, who is both CEO, Chief Executive Officer, and Administrative Officer, CAO, is elected by you, sets policy, represents the town, and manages the day-to-day operations, a full-time role. This system has served us well, but as Summers grows, we're evaluating whether it meets future needs. Why does this matter now? Summers has over 10,000 residents and a $41.8 million budget this year, up 5% from last year. Approximately 73% of our funds are geared towards education, leaving the remaining funds for roads, emergency services, and other services. These demands are increasing and will continue to increase in the future. We're asking, is our current structure equipped to handle the complexity of long-term? What options are we exploring? We've identified two governance models, each with benefits and drawbacks. First, the status quo. The selectman is a leader and manager. Description: the election's first selectman is CEO, and CEO continues to set policy and managing operations. The pros are direct accountability to voters, preservation of tradition, lower costs, as his salary is $101,862. The cons are heavy workload, may strain capacity as towns grow, limited professional management experience dependent upon the candidate. The hybrid model: first selectman, town administrator, town meeting. The description: the elected first selectman remains the CEO and leads on policy, while a hired administrator is the CAO, performs chief officer duties and managing the affairs of the town under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, overseeing the operations of and the services of the departments. The pros are balancing local leadership with professional skills used successfully in towns like Ellington. The cons are moderate costs, $190 to $230, dependent upon the candidate. Potential overlap in roles if not clearly defined. The costs and budget implications. Here's the approximate cost breakdown. Again, status quo, first selectman currently is $101,862. The hybrid would be $190,000 to $230,000, depending upon the adjustment of the first selectman's role as well as the candidate we choose if one is chosen. The positive could be the potential for grants, better budgeting, and efficiency savings. Ellington secured a $5,000 grant $500,000 grant not too long ago. The cons of change are higher upfront costs, possible tax concerns or implications. The right model depends on balancing costs with long-term value. What other towns are doing? Towns like Ellington have adopted a hybrid approach since 2023 and have a town administrator whose role is more focused on overseeing day-to-day operations, implementing policies, and ensuring compliance under the direction of the Board of Selectmen. Others, like Tallinn, opted for a town manager who has more authority, particularly in areas like hiring, firing, negotiations, and budget preparation. Others, like Stafford, have remained with the status quo, the first selectman, Board of Selectmen, and manage well. Each town's choices reflects the needs, and Summers must decide what fits us. Collectively as a board, we decided to focus on the town of Ellington and the recent 2023 adoption of the hybrid system. We had a meeting with the town administrator, Matt Reed, and Ellington First Selectman, Laurie Spielman. Why focus on Ellington? Ellington is a relevant case study as it has many similarities to Summers, as both are rural agricultural towns, growing populations. Summers approximately 10,255, Ellington approximately 16,426. Great school systems with strong BOEs. They have resident trooper programs with constabularies, volunteer fire departments, proximity of sharing Route 83 corridor, and prior to Ellington adopting the hybrid system, the same local government and services which are listed above to name a few. Lastly, and most importantly in our view, both are small towns with a strong sense of community. The takeaway from the meeting we had, Laurie, who's the first selectman, related that she reduced her hours to part-time in order to facilitate the town administrator position and lower costs. Both Laurie and Matt, the town administrator, advocated that this best suited their town management structure and allowed for a more professional approach to dealing with complexities that small towns are currently facing, such as negotiating with unions, hiring and firing, budget and grant preparation, just to name a few. They related that the town administrator was chosen exclusively on the basis of their executive and administrative qualifications, character, education, training, and experience. They also related the town administrator was not required to be a town resident. They further related that the town administrator shall be appointed by the Board of Selectmen and is an exempt position of indefinite term. The town administrator may also be removed by a 2/3 vote of the entire membership of the Board of Selectmen, thus keeping the checks and balance. Both strongly indicated that the town administrator is responsible to the Board of Selectmen and the voters who remain in control of significance with required voters' input. Both expressed that there was a period of time for adjusting regarding adopting charter changes to reflect the new administration structure, and overall has been well received by the residents of Ellington. What matters to the Somers residents? We've heard your priorities. Accountability. All models keep the board accountable to voters to various degrees. The administrative model reduces control. The local culture. Status quo preserves tradition. New models add professionalism without losing identity. Services. A professional administrator could speed up services, but the current system we have is familiar to us. Transparency. Any change requires public meetings and a vote. So thinking long-term here, the questions that we have to consider are, can our system handle future growth? Does it ensure stability during leadership changes? What structure best serves the Somers needs? Each model offers trade-offs. In closing, the discussion is about finding the best path for Somers. Whether we keep the current system or choose to adopt a hybrid, our goal is a town that runs well and reflects our values. An educated electorate is a cornerstone of thriving democracy. Thanks for being here, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Open it up for public comment on question number 2.
You want to be first.
Go ahead, Sean.
Sean Curtis, 36 Lovers Lane. I support this. My comments, I think continuity of leadership in town, especially a growing town, and I was watching last meeting, some of the discussions you all had, is important. I think the selectman format, as I've gotten to know some of the selectmen, how the government works here, I think that is important, but so is the continuity of leadership over time as we cycle through selectmen 2 to 4 years. Some run multiple terms, which I think is an advantage to the town should they be elected. But I also think as we think about continuity of leadership is what is the culture that we're also creating within the town hall and the offices here. Observation is, we've had a fair amount of turnover. With engineers, with I look at the land use office and how overworked and just it's becoming more and more is going on in the town, and we're asking much more of people. And how do we evolve and grow as a town, and understand the services that are needed here, but also the staff to support it. And hopefully this type of position can support the selectmen and give that, I think, that perspective. And as we continue to grow as a town, have the support that's needed to evolve. As we go there. So I'm in favor of this in whatever format that it takes. I came from Farmington. They have a town manager structure there with a town council that works very well. Obviously a slightly bigger town. But I just want to say that hopefully we can think about continuity leadership and how we staff and serve the town and its growing needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Dave? Then Ralph. Yeah. On deck.
Okay. So Ellington has a 5-member Board of Selectmen?
I believe they do, yes.
I believe they do. And I'd be a little hesitant to put the hired administrator into the hands of 2 individuals out of 3. I mean, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're proposing in that hybrid model would be that the Board of Selectmen could dismiss.
You could dismiss, yes. Well, that's how Ellington set up. Now, how this is passed,
that's,
we can adopt our own way of doing things.
And I mean, if there are more members on the Board of Selectmen, I'm a little more comfortable. I mean, I know the conflicts in the Enfield get to be a little dramatic at times. And it can become political, unfortunately. And I'm not sure how to guard against that. I mean, because we want the administrator to be focused on day-to-day business and not on politics, and yet somehow the position becomes politicized. And I still support the concept. I'm just picking away a little bit at how the administrator does what the town needs in terms of taking care of business. The Board of Selectmen deal with what the town wants in the way of policy and implementing policy, Ed, we can talk about the school board model. I mean, there are times when the superintendent becomes a bit of a victim of a change in attitude, and I suspect, and that's some of what we see in Enfield when the council kind of shifts in terms of attitude, that somehow the administrator is not doing the job that the new folks want, or that the majority want, and maybe that's not avoidable. I don't know, but nonetheless, I think having the selectman and the administrator is the way to go for the future of this town.
Thank you, Dave. Ralph?
Ralph Williams, 42 Springfield Road. I also would like to see a larger Board of Selectmen, but I think that's an issue for a hopefully not too distant future Charter Commission to consider. I understand Mr. Penny's concerns. I also know, as Terry Wells knows, because we served on a commission which cooked up a very similar proposal before it got torpedoed by the Board of Selectmen. That one of the things that came out was often it's not a candidate for a job like that won't take it unless it's near unanimous support from the board to get hired, because otherwise you might. All it takes is one irritated naysayer who can become a majority later. But no, I think that we shouldn't wait for that better world of the 5-member Board of Selectmen to have a town administrator, because I think that the need is going to become more and more pressing every day. My oft-repeated chestnut that the only people who are in a position to step forward, and I just say not to risk their families' well-being and livelihood by taking a job they can get kicked out of in 2 years, is someone who's either very rich or very old. And there are a few of us every day. So no, I think that this is the time to do it. I do think there should be, Mr. Clark suggested a supermajority, which at the moment is what a majority equals on the Board of Selectmen, but ultimately down the road it should be at least a 2/3 majority, either to hire or to replace. I'm utterly in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Yeah. Coming down the center aisle.
Kimberly Quirk, and I'm a resident of 298 Watchog Road in Summers. I'm a graduate of Summers High School, and I am a teacher at Tolland High School. And because Tolland was mentioned in your presentation, I want to tell you that based on my experience of being a town employee, I would urge you to consider a hybrid model over a strictly town management model. Because as you may or may not be aware, the budget referendum in Tolland went down 3 times last year. And at the high school alone, that resulted in a cut of 7 teachers and programs that were greatly valued by students. This year, we had to go to 2 referendums, and the budget increase is a little over 1% rather than 5%. And however you may otherwise feel about expenditures for public education, I think we can all agree that our household budgets this year have gone up by more than 1%. So I think that if you do hire a town manager, there has to be strong hybrid accountability, because I think there is an interplay between the Board of Education in that town, the town council, and the town manager that makes it very difficult to make sure that realistic financial goals are set. I also think that it is good to consider a town manager's residency in evaluating their merits as a town employee, because yes, there are incredible skills that need to be brought to the table. Knowledge of, all kinds of laws that need to be in part of your repertoire if you're going to do that job. But there's also something to be said for having to look your neighbors in the eye at the grocery store if you are the person who has a big hand in making financial decisions that may hurt those people.
Thank you, Kimberly. Dave?
Dave Marty, 50 Springfield Road. Basically, I agree with Ralph. I really support the hybrid solution. I think it's really important for continuity. With the first selectman being elected every 2 years, there's such a learning curve with that position, and the town is very fortunate to have the first selectman we have now, and we might not always be that lucky. So I think having the administrator that reports to the Board of Selectmen is the right solution. And I also think that having 5 versus 3 would be more suitable. And for a lot of the same reasons that we talked about the town clerk. You don't want somebody that's strictly on a popularity contest to get in and not have the skill sets that are required. And the job today is so much more complex for the first selectman, just as it is for the town clerk. There's just so much more legislative and laws that are involved. So I just want to echo that I support the hybrid solution.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else on question number 2? Okay. Then we will move on to question number 3. The presentation will be by John Parks, and shall the Planning and Zoning Commissions be combined to a single appointed body? John.
Thank you, Scott. Number one, I'm surprised I'm on this commission. The first 2 times the first selectman asked me, I said no. He persisted. He won. So here I am. I realized that it's easy to dodge this stuff, and initially that's what I was going to do, but I thought about it and I realized I do know a little bit about this subject. I spent the last 45 years representing primarily developers before the town planning and zoning commissions. I thought I knew the subject thoroughly. I was wrong. The truth is, I actually didn't have the big picture. The first thing I learned is there are very few towns like the town of Somers that have 2 separate commissions. And the slide says 85%, I think it's closer to 90%, have combined the commissions. And all the towns around here, so I've represented developers throughout the state of Connecticut, and frankly, in 45 years, the only town that I've appeared before that has separate commissions is the town of Somers, but I never really thought about why or what transactionally that causes until I joined this commission, because I was essentially a hired gun and I did what I was paid to do. But when I got on this board, I started searching for towns like Somers, and I found one, or I thought I found one. Norwalk, Connecticut has a separate planning and zoning commission, so I called them and I spoke with the town planner, and what I learned is they had recently combined their Planning and Zoning Commission into a combined board, so I was too late, but I actually really wasn't too late, because it made a very good talking point for the town of Summers, because I asked the town planner, and he said the combination reduced or eliminated membership vacancies, and we have those currently on both of our boards. It reduced or eliminated the number of meetings canceled due to a lack of a quorum, which we have that also in the town of Summers. It reduced or eliminated the duplication involved by landowners requiring every land use application to make separate proposals to two separate commissions. And the thought by some people is that there's a check and balance, or that the boards share. The reality is that does not happen. And in fact, I was involved in a case in the town of Summers, and maybe you wrote about this, Ralph, but where one board actually sued the other board, and we lost, the residents of Summers, because we paid for lawyers on both sides. And it was interesting, but what you find when you do what I do and you travel around the state is that by combining them, and I would take from both boards and merge sort of the best and the brightest, because what you find is, so like my favorite board in the whole state is South Windsor, and they have like an exceptional planning and zoning commission, and what you find is a higher caliber because they have the subdivision aptitude from the planning commission, and then they see how the uses in what's subdivided happen, and they have it all in front of them. And instead of the Summers Zoning Commission referring it to the Planning Commission, and when the Planning Commission gets it, unless they watched on the video the Zoning Commission's meeting, they don't have the first idea what it's about. I mean, I just walked through the Planning Commission. We actually had their chairman speak before us, and it was very helpful. So additionally, what NOAC taught me is that, and this was amplified when we had Jen Roy, is it reduces or eliminates duplication by town staff attending to and reporting to two separate commissions on every land use application. So you have a parcel of land. So what's the best way to use it? And if you have a blinder, you can't look at the planning aspect of it because you're a zoning commissioner. You can't look at the zoning aspect because you're really a planning commission. You really have blinders on, and you don't do as thorough a job. And I would encourage anyone here who has any questions to use or look at South Windsor as an example. So after Norwalk opened my eyes, I looked to our town staff. I started talking with both Jen Roy and Brad Pellisier, who was surprised I had his cell number, and I invited both of them to come and talk to our commission. And what I heard specifically from Jen Roy echoed what the Norwalk town planner told us, in that she was bouncing back and forth between meetings. There were vacancies on both boards, and I thought, wow, I should put you in touch with the Norwalk town planner, because he feels like their town found a solution for that. Then I wasn't satisfied that I was doing a representative sampling by talking to towns that had separate boards, so I started talking to members of boards who, some of which hated me for things that I had brought to their towns, but they swallowed hard and talked to me, and that includes Ellington, Stafford, Vernon, Enfield. And once we got past who I was, we actually found common ground, and they couldn't believe what we do here in Summers, and they couldn't understand, why we do it. And it's like this: if the town is like a business would look at the most effective and efficient way to do things, and we are cavemen. We're doing things, we haven't even invented the wheel because it's so hard. It's so hard and unnecessarily. And what you have to do is get the world view. You have to look at it from far away before you see this. And here I've been doing this for 45 years, and I didn't really see it. So my recommendation, based on my years of doing this and what I've learned since I joined this board and am sitting on this side of the table for once, which is unusual, is that I think it's a good idea. I think it's going to savings, but I actually think we're going to get better land development by allowing the boards not to play off each other, not to sue each other, not for slick attorneys to play one against the other, which has happened. I'm not going to say who did it, but to just work for what's good for this area in terms of traffic, in terms of the type of use that's there, in terms of the size of the parcel. And, I'm not going to go on and on and on, but I'm sort of invested in this subject, and I know a lot about it, and I know you have thoughts and questions. I'm happy to answer those. I think I'd risk FOI problems if I took your email and emailed you, so I think we should leave it right here. We don't want to give Carl Landolin another job, but I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. Austin.
Austin Spence, 148 Fuel Road. So it seems like there's quite a lot of value propositions for combining those into a single body. I was cursed with the mind of a scientist, so I feel like I always need to play the devil's advocate to get as much data as possible. So what is the value proposition for those 15%, or why, with some of the feedback points at the bottom, what is the positives of keeping it separate? So that's a part of data that I would be curious about.
Yeah, and to be quite honest with you, they made me put those on, which none of the input I got from talking to commissions around the state works well. Why change? It really doesn't work well. It's like really inefficient. It's like driving a Model A on 91. You can do it, but it's going to be ugly and painful. Planning may suffer. So here's the thing. Both the Planning and Zoning Commission are, the way state government works is the state has all the power. Even the towns wouldn't exist without the state's power. The state passes statutes that require a planning and a zoning function and allow them to be joined, and most commissions have joined on. But you can't reduce one or increase one by combining, because the same statutes apply to the planning function if they're combined or if they're separated. So I'm not sure who came up with that, but when you look at the statute, it's a concept, but if you look at the statute, there's really not much wiggle where you could actually do that. Little evidence of need. Developers don't badmouth the town when they're, invested in a project and they have to work harder than they would in any of our budding towns, but they're resented. It does increase the cost. Here's the thing. Any of the towns that you go through to get to Summers, look at what you like and what you don't like, because all of them have combined commissions. Okay, none of them have what we have. What I see, I go way back, I was born here, okay, and I've watched the development, kind of lag. Why isn't 190 all commercial? It's like, who would want to live there? I grew up on 190, and, the cars go by. Why isn't that happening? And a part of it is the boards that, approve things aren't the boards that zone them. And I think that someone can say, yeah, the busiest road in the town, that's where commerce should be, and people shouldn't have to live with, New England tractor trailer going by. They should be in those little cul-de-sacs and stuff. So, I think it's refreshing for you to ask those questions, because that's the only way you find stuff out. But it's hard for me to find those. Somebody else is going to have to come up with it, because I couldn't. I tried it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. Ralph.
Ralph Williams, the caveman at 42 Springfield Road. I strongly oppose this recommendation. I'll do it on three different levels. First, as a fellow who's survived being the father of teenage daughters, the argument that everybody else does it has never carried a lot of water with me. Secondly, as a retired newspaperman and citizen, I've sat through almost as many planning and zoning commissions as you. I didn't collect quite the fee you did, but and what I gradually saw was that most PZCs are zoning commissions that occasionally think about planning, and are spending more of their time deliberating over the application in front of them than the bigger picture of the character of the community at large. That, a separate role, is a planning commission's role. There's a reason that a plan of development is a different document than the zoning regulations. One is a big picture, one is what you may and may not do, within these parameters. Thirdly, as a homeowner, long ago, I had an issue in my neighborhood where one of our neighbors, who was looking to sell his house for a better price than he could get, wanted to rezone the property, which I thought would tear the neighborhood apart. So I got a crash course in the nature of planning and zoning in Connecticut, in Summers in particular. So the proposal went first, as they do, for a zone change request, to the Planning Commission, where arguments were advanced by me, among others, by me and the fellow who wanted to sell his house. And the Planning Commission decided, I believe unanimously, to recommend to the Zoning Commission that it not be approved. Now, what happens in those occasions is if the Zoning Commission wants to approve it, they have to do it by a supermajority. So that put an extra burden on it, which meant that the Zoning Commission knew that the Planning Commission had misgivings. It's good to have a separate body with a separate role, with a separate objective, take a look at something and present that perspective to the Zoning Commission. And I think that we lose that if we combine them into a single commission. Lastly, yeah, I'm sure developers resent having to go to twice as many meetings. I'm sure some town staff resent going to twice as many meetings. On the other hand, due process can get messy. On the other hand, due process is deliberation. That means thought has gone into it, many thoughts have gone into it, many perspectives have been considered before a decision is made. I think that's something worth keeping, so I oppose this recommendation.
Thank you, Ralph. Next, Catherine?
It's my understanding, Catherine Mashak, 54 Springfield Road. It's my understanding that the driving force behind planning and zoning is the town plan of conservation and development, that everything goes back to that. And I have sat in on meetings where that is revised every so many years. It is also, if I may be mistaken, but we no longer have a town planner. That position was, do we? No. That position was let go several years ago. And part of it, I think, was because of political reasons, without getting into the nitty-gritty. So that's another thing. But we've always had a very strong town plan of conservation and development, and things reflect back on that. I think that having opened a business here is very frustrating. I got everything approved, go to move into my property, which is business zone. Oh, no, now you have to get a special use permit. So part of the problem is that things get prolonged. You think you're all set. Nobody tells you got to do this, 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 and this. They say you got to do this, this, and this. And then later on they go, now you got to do this, this, and this. So this is a problem for people who are trying to establish a business in town. And of late, I was very aware that a major problem that was resolved is not having a building inspector who worked for us in our town, and that's been resolved. So, I understand checks and balances, but if we want to accept growth in this town and provide jobs, provide tax base, we need to streamline some of the cockamamie crap that goes on. And part of it is going, and again, I'm very aware of the fact that, I tried to clean it up. I'm very aware of the fact that these positions are hard to fill. These are volunteer positions. People aren't running forward saying, I want to do it. Also, sometimes it has to do with political affiliation, because you have to have certain political affiliation to join a commission. And when you're trying to start a business or something, or do something here, and you're scheduled for a meeting, we can't have the meeting because we don't have a quorum. So now it's put off another month. And then you have to go to another commission when you get done with that one. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. It shouldn't take people 6 months to a year to open up a business, especially if it's zoned business, commercial property. That's it.
Thank you. Yes. Done.
She's been waiting.
Dave Marty, 50 Springfield Road. This time I disagree with Ralph.
That was your house.
I know it was.
I didn't have a problem with the
I know.
Basically, I endorse this combination just for efficiency reasons, and also as a past small business owner in town. The town has a rep as just being business unfriendly, and if we want to grow the tax base and not have all our property house taxes go up, we need to get some business to pay more taxes. So I'm fully endorsing this recommendation.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, Vicki.
You passed me over twice.
I didn't see you. And then Kimberly, you're next.
Short back there. Vicki Clark, 29 Skyridge Drive. I wholeheartedly support this change. It's I support everything that Cassie just said. I've worked with so many businesses over the years that I wonder myself, why are they still going forward when they've been, same thing, there's not enough people at the meeting. What do you mean I have to go to a separate meeting before it goes to zoning? It's just really, really frustrating, and we do have a terrible reputation of being difficult to get business in. We need business here. We need a strong business base to support not only our community. I love the idea of having jobs here for people, but the more business we can bring in, the more people will stay in town instead of going to all of our neighbors for their services. So I love the idea of combining these.
Thanks, Vicki.
As I mentioned previously, I teach at Tolland High School.
Just for the record.
298 Watchog Road,
Thank you.
Somers, Connecticut, Kimberly Court. I teach English at Tolland High School, and one of the things I value is teaching my students to write efficiently, to use the $2 word where it will do instead of the $5 or $10 word, and to say things as succinctly as possible. But when it comes to zoning and planning, efficiency isn't the first word I think of as ideal. It's proficiency. And I don't know how many of you were at the zoning meeting where the decision to have a 3-acre manure pond at the end of my street on Watchog Road was appealed and successfully upheld. But really, everyone in that room, myself included, was schooled by the attorney for the appellant about the dangers of that particular model of manure pool, which would be near many homes with wells, a stream that floods, a river that floods, etc. And what really became clear to me is that, our zoning and planning commissions really need to be, we need our town planner because we need people who are educated about all of the risks. Yes, do we need more business in town? Do we need people to be able to open their businesses efficiently? Yes, we do. But we also need to make sure that any plans we put forth are going to allow people who already live here to remain without worrying about whether or not they will be able to live in their homes in the way that they've been accustomed to. And part of our zoning tradition is that most people who want to can, take care of their need for water out of their own well and have their own septic. And it's something my parents valued. It's something I value. And part of zoning and planning is to be proficient in maintaining those things that are still part of our character.
Thanks, Kimberly. Sean?
Sean Curtis, 36 Lovers Lane. Lots going through my head on this one. First, support it. And I understand what you're saying about proficiency. I also think that proficiency doesn't come at the expense of efficiency. I do think that this surfaces a lot of different conversations. One, the absence of a town planner in a growing town. The continuity of that, the skill sets. If you guys have spoken with Jen Roy and Todd and the work that both of them do in terms of land use in town, it's significant. I also sit on the Economic Development Commission in town, and you hear from businesses in town about is Somers open for business or closed for business? And Cassie said that as well. It becomes very difficult, and I don't think that's intentional. I think it's just the process, and we're not evolving and growing as a town, and hopefully that does that. It creates the proficiency within this board, as Mr. Parks stated, in terms of the small, again, a smaller group. You get a better, maybe an increased quality group, and that's not being disparaging about the folks that are there. But maybe it raises the caliber of the collective group and creates the efficiency that's needed from this. I just watched this recently. I forget the parcel, but they'll plot of land behind just off of Field, I think it was 10 Field Road, where it's, you watch, they go to planning and the planning kicks it to zoning and 3 months later they're finally through. And it's like, that's not, if we want to create business and opportunity in town to do that. I also think that if you root cause things, which I like to do, is that if we do a really good job as a town and have strong zoning regulations and a strong POCD, that anchors the vision of what we want to create, and then these boards work toward that. I've had the opportunity to meet with a number of the commissioners, as Mr. Parks mentioned, and I think the other thing that surfaced here is that we have a lot of commissions that aren't talking to each other. I don't think merging them all is necessarily the solution. In this case, I think it is. But I think that this, is an opportunity for us to also advocate for better collaboration across commissions as we try to create a vision for what do we want to have in this town in terms of business, where do we want to create that, how do we work with developers in town, people that own certain strategic pieces of land, and create a vision for what we want versus businesses kind of storming in, kicking in, and saying this is what we want. We should have a vision as a town. And I hope that this combined board can help create that and work across the different departments in the town hall, but also the elected offices. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Yes. Hi.
Joan Rivard, 74 Maple Ridge Drive. I've lived in this town for a lot of years, and I know some of the stories that you've been hearing back and forth, and yes, there's a lot of problems with small businesses being able to not pull all their hair out. But and there's a lot of words being found, but the main word is communication. The people that work for the town and with the town have to communicate with each other to help, if they want the small businesses in there, help them. And don't say you need this and then come back 3 weeks later. No, you can't open because you don't have that. So I like the idea of the planning and zoning because I would hope that it would teach them and help them to be able to communicate better and to communicate well with, and let the townspeople know what's going on and not have to find out about it last minute. That's something that's always been a problem, to communicate what's going on with the town, because they should know. It's our town. It's our town. But so I back the planning and zoning combination in the hopes that they will communicate better and be the better for our town because of it.
Thank you, Joan. Anyone else for number 3? All right, excellent. Thank you. We'll move on to number 4. Shall the dollar amount over which a special appropriation exceeds, thus requiring approval by vote of a town meeting, be revised? And this is Mike's question.
Yeah, that amount is $20,000. Now, let me just give you some scenarios that would show the need for this. And I've had experience with it. I was the chief financial officer in this town for 10 years. And state statute says, and I can't really give you the exact statute, but our charter makes reference to state statute and says, if you want to appropriate an amount of money over $20,000, you need to go to a town meeting. Now, what does that mean? That means that you already have an approved budget, which the taxpayers have approved, and now this expense that is coming down is something that was not planned for. So it could be a $30,000 repair to a fire truck. It could be we need $40,000 for an engineering study. So these are expenses that you want to make, but you don't have the money unless it's appropriated out of the general fund reserve. So your department head, anybody will either go to the CFO or go to the selectmen and say, this is what we need, and they agree, and the CFO and the selectmen immediately know if it's over $20,000, it's out of our charter limitation, and we're going to have to go to town meeting. And what does that mean? So they have to bring it to the Board of Finance. Ralph has been there. He knows what that's like. And they go through the justification with the Board of Finance, and then a town meeting has to be called. Now, invariably, those town meetings are attended by, I would say in the 10 years I've been here, I haven't seen more than 12 people at some of these town meetings. Usually, as Ralph just showed, it's about 5 people show up at the meeting. I think 3 of them might be the selectmen. So it is almost a waste of time, and it is like a triple, triple check of internal controls going through step by step. So in consultation with the CFO, the current CFO, and the Board of Finance, they said they would like to have that amount increased. And it was discussed that should we increase that to a number like 100,000, or should we use a formula to index it? And they decided to use a formula to index it to the current budget. So I'll give you an example. Our current budget is $41.8 million. We're the one that's coming up in the new fiscal year. And with the formula that they came up with, $83,300 is the number. So if that request is above that amount, then there would be a town meeting. If it's below that amount, it would just go through, the CFO approves it, the Board of Selectmen approve it, the Board of Finance approves it. So the question is, and if this is a confusing question, please let us know, because I think I want to get it worded so that people understand. I mean, it's not something that affects you, like all these other questions affect you, but it does affect the internal controls and the financing of money that's needed. We're dealing with a threshold that was established in 1990. It's certainly outdated. That's the Model A going down Route 91 for sure. So we want a better correlation between the approval threshold and the town budget. So that's basically it. So.
And Mike, the percentage is 0.2%?
Yeah, the percentage is 0.2% of 1% of the current approved town budget. So next year, when it increases, the CFO will announce to everybody what that new number is. So as a charter town, we can override the state statute with our own formula that we want to do. And many people said to me, why didn't you do that when you were the CFO all those 10 years? I said, well, I didn't really think about it this way. It makes a lot of sense, though. So.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. Comment, Dave.
Dave Marty, 50 Springfield Road. Tim came to me about a month ago and said, $20,000 this year. What does that equate today with inflation? So I went and did all the math, calculated it.
1992.
Today. And it was like $75,000. So the 20 is equal to 75 today. So the 83 seems right in line with that. So I think that this is a good recommendation. I think indexing it too with a percentage makes a lot more sense, so we're not doing this again 20 years from now.
Thank you, Dave. Comments? Anyone?
You have to be careful how you word the question.
Got there.
True.
Catherine Mashak, 54 Springfield Road. You're going to start calling me the mouth. Anyway, I think you have to be very careful how you word the question. A few years back, when they were voting to change the charter for the fire chief, I wasn't paying attention, and I voted no. And I regretted that after I found out. And I'm assuming that the majority of the people are like me. They don't always know what's going on. So how the question's worded, and I think the last referendum, when they asked for the charter revision, it was a little confusing what they were. So semantics, specificity is very important. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Vicki?
Vicki Clark, 29 Skyridge. So would it be that would it be like part of the budget where you would say this is the budget and this would be the number that would be we can use this amount of money? Would it be changed with every budget is my question. Okay.
Every approved budget, every year. So, yeah.
Okay.
And Vicki, the funds would come from, and I hope I have the terminology right, but the unallocated fund balance or reserve. So a town always has a set amount of reserves.
Right.
So if this emergency or extra expenditure comes up, As long as you have that,
It's there, it's just
there.
giving
It's just
pre-approval
not
to
in a
use
line
it in an
item?
emergency, right?
a
I think,
specified line.
like, that should be kind of spelled out, and when you present it, like, this would be a new number with every budget, so people understand that it will continually change as our
Yeah.
budget changes.
Yeah, that will be in the explanatory text with the question, but I think I'm going to still work on making this question a little more clearer.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
It's
comment there, Catherine.
Having it be a percentage makes it more difficult to, when it's a set dollar amount, then people really understand that. But
Yeah.
it's important what you're doing, but it's harder.
Say parenthetically, which in this current year would be.
Yeah. Anyone else on question 4? Okay, thank you. We'll move to question number 5. This one was brought to the commission through, I think, through one of the commission members. Shall an appointee, or Dave brought it, okay. Shall an appoint, that gives it more weight. All right. Shall an appointee to a vacancy in elective office serve for the remainder of the elected term rather than until the next election? And Ed gets to present this question.
All right, thank you, Scott. Yeah, question 5, shall an appointee to a vacancy in an elective office serve for the remainder of the elected term rather than until the next election? So this question is all about if an elected official needs to step down from their position before the end of the term, there's a remainder of that, the remainder of the term. Take, for example, a Board of Ed position. As a 4-year term, if the elected official steps down in the first year, there's 3 years that remain. Someone's appointed to fulfill that position. That appointee right now serves until the next election, and this proposal is to have them serve the remainder of that term. In the case I just gave it an example, 3 years. And so we got some feedback both for this proposal and against, and so I'm going to share a bit of that now here. So feedback for that would be several residents expressed that partial term elections often cause confusion on the ballot. So when you see on a ballot, vote for this person for 3 years for the same position as these others that vote for the regular terms, it's confusing. How do you cast that ballot? How do you vote for them, especially when there's different parties and different term lengths? Other feedback we received is by allowing an appointee to complete the full remaining term, it's much simpler in the process. So there's administrative errors that can happen. This avoids those. There's no need to run a short campaign for short terms, things of that nature. This approach is used by several municipalities in Connecticut, and other feedback for this has been it's really difficult to recruit candidates for short-term, partial terms, and by making this change, it would remove that barrier. On the other hand, feedback against this proposal is that some residents have voiced concerns about the democratic accountability. So if an appointee fills the rest of the long term, voters don't have the chance to weigh in until several years later on that position. There's concerns that it could lead to someone fulfilling a full term without ever appearing on the ballot. That could be problematic, even if the appointment process is followed properly. And some question whether there's really a need to change, since it's worked for many years, not knowing the process that it takes to put people on the ballot, keep track of the records of who's running for how long, things of that nature. And so, that's the feedback we've received both for and against, so we welcome your comments at this time on this question.
All right, thank you, Ed. Let me guess. Dave, come on.
This is actually one issue that I almost feel more passionate about than the number one on the town clerk. And what I want to share with you is, as I've gone to town clerk conferences and had meetings with the Secretary of State's office, they always stress, if you are a charter town, get this changed, because there's so many opportunities for errors to happen, system we have in place right now. And I want to give you a perfect example. The election of 2023, which was my first election, We had Board of Finance for 6 years, Board of Finance for 4 years, Board of Finance for 2 years. We have Board of Education for 4 years, Board of Education for 2 years. We had Library Board for 4 years, Library Board for 2 years. So it's just, it's very confusing. Now, on my first election, I did an error. I put the wrong person in the 2-year slot for the Board of Education. Okay, I know. Beginner's error. Maybe if they had hired somebody that was. But at the same time, there's another error that happened back in 2013. And at that point, the Board of Education was always alternating 5 and 4 candidates, 5 and 4, 5 and 4. In 2013, they were supposed to run 5 for full term and 1 for 2 years. Somehow, at that time, it was 6 for full term and 1 for 2 years. So it got the cycle out of whack. So since then, we've been on 6-3-6-3. So I spoke with the Secretary of State's office. I spoke with both Republican and Democratic town committees. I spoke with the chair of the school board. They all want to get this fixed. And so the solution was that the individual that was put on the 2-year slot in error is agreed to run in the 2-year slot again, so he'll actually get his full 4 years, but he's going to be on the ballot twice for it. And then we'll be back on the 5-4 cycle. So I feel really strongly about this. So I understand there's concerns about if somebody on a 6-year term bows out in the first year that the appointed person's there for 5 years. But I think the people that are doing the appointing will not appoint a slacker or whatever. You'll get a caliber person. So that's my story.
Thank you, David. And he fell on the sword, too, on live television.
Yep.
All right, public comment on question 5. Number 5. Anyone else?
Ralph Williams, 42 Springfield Road. I think it can be heard. I'm for it, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Dave? Or are you itching?
Are you on to the follow-up questions, or are you still on 5?
No, so we're still on number 5. Okay. So we're good with 5? All right. What we want to do next is, this is not a question that we're proposing to be on the ballot, but is a recommendation being forwarded to the Board of Selectmen. And I'm going to let Catherine give that presentation.
I thought I was going to get away without having to present because my question was withdrawn. You gave me this. What we learned is that we don't need to have a special question on the ballot for this, but we're going to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to adopt an ordinance changing the term for the Office of Register for Voters from 2 to 4 years. And the reason being that in 2024, new additional training requirements were established for the Registrar of Voters. They have to have certain certifications similar, to having certifications as the town clerk. And so a 4-year term is better suited to accommodate the learning curve and the time it takes to complete that training.
Okay. And we will thank you, Catherine, and we'll open it up to comment on this recommendation of ours to the Board of Selectmen, which you'll also have the opportunity to voice your opinion to the Board of Selectmen on this one. Right. Dave.
David McCaffrey, 249 9th District. I endorse the recommendation for the ordinance change from 2 to 4 years as registrar. I've been the registrar for a few years, and the change, the educational requirement, I think went into place about 2018, I think. And so you have 2 years basically to get certified as a Connecticut registrar of voters. And so that is the present term. So technically you could take the whole 2 years and then you could opt to no longer run. would kind of defeat the purpose to be able to utilize that training. So I think it makes a lot of sense to go to the four-year role. So I endorse that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Anyone else on this recommendation? All right. So that completes the 5 questions and the recommendation. And as stated, all right. Actually, we'll do next steps. No, you know what? Let's just take. No, next steps. Let's do next steps. Follow the presentation. So what we have is we have a meeting scheduled for 1 week from today on the 18th, where the commission will be considering the input from this evening. And then what we need to do is make a final report by vote to the Board of Selectmen. It will be a cover letter with the questions that we're recommending. Accompanying it, as Mike had mentioned, will be explanatory text, also changes, our recommendations of changes to the actual charter document itself. And all of that would get forwarded to the Board of Selectmen. Within 15 days of the final public hearing, the Board of Selectmen may recommend changes to the commission's draft. Oh, I'm sorry. So then the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing within 45 days.
You get to come back.
This is a pretty extensive process. So then there's recommended changes and approval or rejection by the Board of Selectmen. So again, we're at the beginning stage of this process. And then it goes to publication, referendum, and certification. So that's a pretty exhausting process, but it's been eye-opening for a lot of us and education for the whole process. What will open it up is for final public comment. Dave? Tim? No, after Dave. I want to hear from my first selectman, so.
David McCaffrey, 249 9th District. I just have 2 comments I'd like to make, and that is I strongly encourage that the questions all be laid out individually on the ballot and not have a shall the decision of the Charter Revision Committee as proposed be approved or denied, and just give one blanket. I think that's very important. From my experience, there's a lot of concerns by the townspeople when they come out to vote. So by not having the ability to be able to vote individually. And then the second comment I have is explanatory text must be very clear, very concise, because if it's not, then I get the brunt of very unhappy voters, okay? Because the voters come in, they don't understand the questions, they didn't see the mailers and the many, many flyers and the posts, and they come here and they see it on the ballot and they say, what does this mean? So it is very, very important that you make it crystal clear. As the registrar, I am forbidden from explaining anything. So I have to send them out to the vestibule to read the explanatory text. So make sure it's clear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Tim.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. First, I'd like to endorse what Dave McCaffrey just stated. And it's really, communication is really important here. And it's important when people vote, they understand what they're voting on. And I think we've had problems in that respect in the past. And I also support the individual votes on the various recommendations. And I'd like to thank, I'm not going to be able to be at your meeting next week, but I'd like to thank the board for all that you've done. This is an outstanding group, very committed, very dedicated, and really much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Dave?
Dave Marty, 50 Springfield Road. Communicating all this is going to be key. And so I suggest that at minimum, we do the quarterly mailers, the Summers Connects, is that the next one or whatever before November's election, that this be the whole focus of it and that really be spelled out what the questions are and clearly define that explanatory text so everybody goes into this thing with their eyes wide open. And then to close, I just want to ditto what others have said, that your commission, you guys have been great. You're a phenomenal group. You really work well together, and you've accomplished a lot in a really short amount of time. So just kudos to all of you.
Great. Thank you. Kimberly?
298 Watchog Road. I'm sure it won't surprise you that I have been obsessing over the language in this slide about special appropriations because I am an English teacher. And I think that one of the ways to simplify that question and to make it seem, well, not just seem, to make it more palatable to the voter is to, first of all, eliminate the phrase special appropriations, because special appropriation has a negative connotation for someone who is suspicious about what's going on with money behind closed doors. I think you want to say something very simple, like in the event that emergency funds need to be tapped due to unforeseen circumstances with the budget, at what dollar amount will the need for a vote be triggered?
I'll give you my email address.
It's on YouTube.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave Marty, 50 Springfield Road. Kind of the emphasis of wording and how wording is important, that appointed and hiring. If you use the word appointed, afterwards have in brackets hired.
Yep.
So that's really important.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, just a very short comment, John Rivard, Ridge Drive. If they don't understand, I was a registrar of voters for a lot of years in this town. If they don't understand it or are confused by it, they vote it out. Yeah. It's a given. So you got to get that wording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Sean?
Maybe just a recommendation, or I can, Sean Curtis, 36 Lovers Lane. You guys did a fantastic job presenting it slide by slide, each of you taking one, and professional background in marketing is maybe just each of you do, like, over the next few weeks, create a video, put it on the town website, YouTube, whatever, and because no one's going to watch a 10-minute or let alone a 2-hour meeting, right? And so how can you take each question over the next few weeks and present it so that people can consume that content and get familiar with the question and present in a way that way, whether it's on the town website, on YouTube, but, everybody here is on Facebook, right? There's 14 different Town of Summers forums. I just put it out there. People will watch. And then you can read the comments and sit back and some popcorn.
If you dare.
But just trying to think of a way to get more people educated and informed. They might not like it. It may create some interesting conversation. You may learn something, but I want to throw that idea out to you.
John might become the next influencer.
Joan?
I represent the older group in town, okay? I have friends who don't have computers.
Yes.
I have friends who, maybe they have a flip phone, maybe they don't have that. You have to find, and it's hard. It's hard to reach them with this, I know it is, but it's not all on the internet. And I get that complaint, well, sure, it was on the internet, but I didn't know about it.
Right.
So, and I know it's difficult, but please don't forget us.
Just don't rely on social media. Get out the flyers, things like that. So,
Because there's a lot of us. Which local paper are you going to run things in? We don't have a local paper anymore.
We don't have a reporter. You should start one.
Yeah. There's nothing to do.
Ralph Williams, 42 Springfield Road. As a retired editor, I would like to say, make sure that one set of eyes and one pen or keyboard is involved in the forming of these questions. It should be gone over by a couple people to make sure that there's going to be no ambiguity whatsoever.
thanks, Ralph. Anyone else? Jamie?
Yeah. Jamie Reinberger, 148 Field Road. Back to question number 4 on the wording. I think something important is it's not just the threshold that's changing, it's the approach to the calculation of the threshold. So if that could be included in the question, I think that's definitely a key point of that change. And also in the point of marketing. I have a marketing background. If there's an opportunity to create a visual graphic of the inflation rate change since 1990 and how that has or has not changed with the threshold, I think that would be really powerful in helping people understand the difference.
Thanks, Jamie. And if you want to speak to her, I know where she lives.
Only because we announced it on microphone.
That's right. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Linda Robiati, 167 Mountain Road. I think people are going to wonder if all these changes are going to affect their taxes and how is that going to affect their lives. That's something, I tried to do the calculations when you were doing numbers and salaries and all that, and I couldn't really put it together, but I think townspeople are going to want to know if this is going to affect their tax rate and what it's going to cost them.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, I want to end this by thanking you for your participation. Your feedback is much appreciated. We still have some work to do. And any closing comments from commission members? Everyone wants to go home? All right, then I'll declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much and have a great evening. All right. Good job.